our guest of honor today, we have Alex Allemand, the North American GTM lead for Google, who will introduce himself shortly, and Haque, the CTO for Centerfield. And I myself am the CEO and co-founder at a company called Clerk AI based out of San Francisco. And we want to thank the LinkedIn team as well for sponsoring this and for helping out to host this as well. Let's get started. And I'm going to share just my slides just in a second here. All right, so we're all gathered here for RCS, but I think it's pretty common that when you receive the ping in your pocket and the vibration from a multiple notification, there's a lot of anticipation, right? Could it be your friend? Could it be a parent or an emergency, or maybe even just a secret lover? But honestly, if you're like me, or Haque or Alex, you're probably receiving one of these millions of text messages that consumers receive every single day, which is a coupon, maybe a FedEx delivery notification if it's not a scam. And that is what's leading us to say that transactional messaging is dead on arrival, right? We all text back stop, or we all push it to spam. Apple and Google are working very hard to push these notifications that we all receive as consumers into the spam inbox. And we're all collectively, I think as a society, pushing away from these phishing and scam messages. And at Clerk AI, with Google and with Centerfield, we're trying to reimagine what if customers actually could be obsessed with contacting businesses? What if it was such a delightful experience that every time you received a notification from a business, it wasn't just a simple coupon. It wasn't a notification that was alerting you and it felt like an ad, but actually felt like a conversation. What if it became so delightful to interact with a business and have a conversation with a business? It felt like it was a concierge-like service. And that is the promise that conversational RCS brings us. That's why we believe and why we're here today, to showcase you why this is a revolution in messaging and in voice AI. What you get is trusted branding, right? So this is the notification that you will now start receiving. If you're like me and you're out in the wild and you're receiving these messages, this is what it looks like. It's verified, so there's an authentication piece. There's richer media, so it also feels almost like, if not, in my opinion, even better than an app-like experience because it lives natively inside of your inbox. There's actions that you can click and buttons that are much more interactive, engaging, and immersive. You don't actually need to fully reply. There's one-tap replies. And what's best of it all is that it's fully integrated within the Google and Apple ecosystem. So Google, as you'll notice, has Google Pay, Calendar, Maps, telephony, and even Google Wallet, which if you've seen the United experience and others, you can tap to add your boarding pass to your wallet in one click as well. And these are innovations that we've been working on, both Centerfield and ourselves at Clerk AI, pushing forward with Google. And the promise of RCS is that it merges beautifully with voice as well. These are two very hot topics in the world today, right? How do AI agents actually work? And what are the real use cases and the case studies that exist? What actually is working other than fancy demos and other than the major LLM providers like OpenAI and Gemini? What actually is working live with businesses? Are there real world examples? And for the audience members today, this is really what we're excited to show you, is that this promises the full customer life cycle that is going to elevate every step of your customer's journey, from discovery to the full engagement to getting full conversions. And then for the performance marketers in the audience, if you're like Haque from Centerfield, you care a lot about post-purchase and even re-engagement as well. So really making sure that the leads that you're qualifying get re-engaged and remarketed. And this is one of the most powerful tools that we've seen working today. Without further ado, thank you to all of you, to the 150 plus members that have signed up for this webinar today. We're so excited to be having you. And I'll pass the mic over to Google, Alex at Google, and Haque at Centerfield to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Alex, and hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us here today. So I'm Alex Allemand. I'm the North American go-to-market lead for RCS for Business here at Google. And I'm super excited to be sharing our experience in this business with you today.
This is Aniket Parmar. I'm a CTO at Centerfield. Super excited to be here. I oversee the entire technology for across all business unit within the company. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on this lovely Monday. Let's dive right into it. We have a few exciting examples of case studies today, and I know webinars can feel a little bit long, but on the agenda, just so you guys know, we're trying to tailor this to about the next 30 minutes. We'll have a Q&A session so everyone can learn more about this real world RCS and AI voice deployment in real life, and what's working, maybe what's not working, what are some common pitfalls that we've seen. And then what we're going to be doing is, for the folks that are the most engaged to the webinar, if you scan this QR code, you can actually engage with the Clerk AI RCS agent right now. If you scan, it should just allow you to click into an RCS experience where it is verified as Clerk AI, and then you can actually interact with the AI agents. If you drop your questions throughout the segment in there, we'll be picking a few. Igor, who is our COO, who's on the other side, managing all of this webinar, we'll be picking out a few of these and then passing them to me, and I'll be, if you're selected, there are a few gift cards that we have to give out as well. So go ahead and scan that. You can also ask in the LinkedIn comment section as well. And yeah, without further ado, let's get started on a couple of the questions. So the first question that I have is for Aniket. Aniket, Centerfield is working with some of the biggest names in telecom, home services, and of course, insurance from a performance marketing side today. Can you give the audience members a sense of the scale that Centerfield is operating at? And really, what was the thing that made you decide to explore RCS and voice AI as part of your lead acquisition strategy?
Sure. So Centerfield is in the business of customer acquisition at the enterprise scale. We process like multi-million conversations each month across all the business units, home services, insurance, and telco. Primarily, we own the full funnel journey of a customer, all the way from if you are a customer and looking for certain services. So the moment you search something within Google or any other channel, all the way down to closing the customer, we control the entire journey. So anything that we do is happening through that lens, and any channel that we touch, we want to make sure we can communicate to the customers through that lens. So going back to the question of why did we went with RCS? Before RCS, we started with SMS almost like long time back, like 5 or 6, 7 years, and we've been still testing with SMS. But it always felt like missed opportunity, where you send a message, someone reads the message, but there was never a conversation happening. And more often, like we would send a message and then redirect into a different channel. So it was kind of like a moot point to have SMS as a channel for a conversation. But our ambitions was always to convert the outreach into a genuine dialogue on SMS, but it just never picked off. So since past year or so, RCS has been maturing the infrastructure, and with the rise of AI agents and stack, it's kind of a point where it made a lot of sense for us to go back and test out this new channel. And with the help of Clerk and Google, we were able to do that, and we saw huge transformational results in our ecosystem since then.
Yeah, you said a couple keywords that were great there, right? It's been maturing. So last year, I remember it still feels like the Wild West for RCS, if I'm being honest. Last year, we were trying very hard with one of the major sports teams in the NFL to launch this live, which we successfully did in May of last year. It's almost been a year anniversary on that. And Alex, we discovered you, we started working with you, and now we didn't really know what the use cases were, right? What use cases would stick for RCS. And so now here we are, fast forward 1 year later, and from where you're sitting at Google, this has been a pretty transformative event, right? 12 months is a pretty long time. And so how come, or what has made it that performance marketing now for Google is one of the verticals that you're watching most closely for RCS? And why does this lead acquisition use case stand out specifically?
Yeah, so performance marketing in general sits at the intersection of where RCS has the most value, right? You have this branded message, verified branding, verified sender ID, reach, conversational, and so you have trust, right? First of all, this is the most key element of RCS is that you have now a branded agent that interacts with you with all these rich features. And so brands in general doing marketing performance marketing have very clear KPIs, measurable KPIs such as volume lead, conversion lead, qualification rate, conversion rate, etc. So these are easy to prove the value of RCS. You have the baseline. These have been running SMS campaigns for a while, and so you have a baseline. They use SMS as a baseline and kind of measure the RCS uplift. And the results are outstanding, and when we talk about that later, but we see 3x performance, conversion rate, and this kind of thing. So I would say this is the first reason RCS really fits into that particular use case. Also, what we've seen from, you mentioned last year, was really kind of the Wild West. So we saw a lot of brands actually converting from existing SMS campaigns, upgrading to RCS with just basic upgrades, right? Leveraging the branded and verified tick mark. And just doing that, they measured, again, outstanding performance. So we are moving from we often speak about this crawl, walk, run approach. And we moved from last year kind of crawling into the run stage right now, where we do see conversational use cases being implemented by brands. And one of the key driver of that is obviously that RCS is probably the largest channel in the US right now. It has full reach across iOS and Android, so it's native in your inbox, right? For those that are new to RCS, you can access this technology in your default messaging inbox, right? So you turn on your phone, it's available right away, whether iMessage for iOS or Google Message for Android devices. And so this is really, we have 275 million RCS capable users, and so that makes really the number one reach and conversational channel for brands for brands to interact with their customers. So it's a long answer, but basically, yeah, good fit between lead generation and RCS, and we believe that it's going to be even better this year.
Yeah, that's what made us super excited last year, right? Was Apple's kind of blessing of this into the ecosystem. Finally, we would have the interoperability between, as a consumer level, between the protocol, right? So I could finally text the family members that were on Android. I wouldn't have to go through WhatsApp. I could finally use my native iMessage as well. It was fully encrypted end to end. So from a security, especially now in today's world, from a security standpoint, that was super important to me. But then, as you mentioned, right, there's a few points, the intersection here of analytics, right? Getting read receipts, getting click receipts. The fact that RCS also opens up natively on your browser, it doesn't actually switch you out of context. So if you're in marketing, if you're traditionally clicking like an SMS link, you lose the context of where the user journey, there's a fractured user journey from that perspective as well. So now you have the full funnel as from a marketing perspective, which again, personally excited us at Clerk AI. We approached Centerfield and shout out Iterable as well, as a company that brokered the relationship between us. They're the ones that have been powering a lot of the marketing for some larger brands on the marketing side. But what was the specific thing, Haque, between, again, the analytics, the interoperability, right, the conversational piece? Was there one thing that stood out in that cocktail of newness and innovation to you, or was it all of that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say like one particular thing, but like multiple things, right? One is like the multi-model features, so ability to inject the images, rich cards, and the interactive options. I think that's really is so different than like just sending a text message and reading a plain text message, right? So it just changes like how you look at a message versus just like interacting and having a full funnel experience within the text messaging. So that's like one big jump. The other one is the main unlock is like two-way. Traditional SMSs were just like like kind of like fire and forget. We used to run like a lot of drip campaigns too, which was also more of like a fire and forget. So there was never a point where like where customers are kind of like responding back or anything along those lines. So that's what I think RCS with like AI agents flipped the story, where now that like you can reach the customers, but then customers can also reach back to you. ask questions, get answers in real time. That is a totally different experience than just sending a plain text message. And the conversation layer actually is super interesting, because it now then leads to like a better quality, because even before, like, talking to a human agent, they can actually interact with the brand, get a basic understanding and get answers to the basic questions, which then puts like a consumer in a totally different mind space than just talking to a human agent which has with no idea about the brand. So that's kind of like another big thing. And then lastly, I think Alex mentioned about, like, the trust signal. So if you combine all of this with the trust signal, and like, the brand is reaching out, it's not like a random person. With SMS, we all know, like, there is no brand there. uh, versus like with RCS, you actually have a brand presence. It just feels like much more matured overall. And I think the combination makes, like, the entire RCS ecosystem as a transformational versus just like an upgrade to an SMS, in my opinion.
Yeah, Aniket, I think it's pretty amazing to have worked with you early on, or later on last year into the early innings of this year. When we first approached you, right, it's something that you and your team had already been exploring. But I think something interesting to know from a Centerfield perspective is that you lead a lot with voice, right? You do a lot of outbound dials. You handle a lot of inbound dialing as well, for those verticals, right? Home services, telecom, insurance. These are massive verticals and massive logos that you represent. So and I think it would be interesting for the audience to hear that you use RCS, as you said, not as like a drip campaign, but truly as when we think about omni-channel, when I describe it to family and friends, what we're doing with your company and what we've enabled with Google, the thing that resonates is it feels like truly the first true omni-channel, or like mixed channel use case. Do you know what I mean? Are you able to maybe talk at a high level about how you've combined multi-channels together, and not just one outbound message or one outbound call that don't have the context of each other?
Yeah, I mean, like, traditionally, like, Centerfield is been very heavy on the voice side, and like, even within the leadership level, we always wanted to diversify our channels and give consumers, like, more options. There was always a certain segment of customers who just didn't want it to talk on the phone. I mean, we all know that at this point. And we were always trying to cater them through SMS, but SMS was just not there for all these years. So trying to, like, find new ways to reach to those customers was very critical for us. And eventually that allows us to, like, to push the barriers and find new ways of giving the entire end-to-end experience. That possibility made a switch. Like, why do we want to go from voice to text messaging? I'll give you an example. Like, oftentimes we send a text message and then we put a phone number, and then we move the consumer to the voice. And when the phone call comes in, like, there is no context about, like, the consumer or what the customer is interested. With RCS, we took a different approach, where if we have ever spoken to a customer, then we have all that context within our ecosystem. And then we try to preserve the memory information. And anytime we are talking either through RCS or voice, the same memory is shared across the both ecosystem. And that actually gives a much better experience to the customer than kind of like just like sending a message across a singular channel, in my opinion.
And Alex from Google, how much does that resonate with you and the team from the RCS side, right? We've discussed not wanting RCS to be yet another transactional vertical or channel. What is so exciting about these deployments that you're seeing? What would you say from Google's perspective, if here we are 1 year from where we were in May 2025, if we were to advance and go 1 year forward from what you're seeing today, what are these use cases, or how excited are you about Conversational moving forward? What would you want to see in the next 12 months shape up for the audience members today that it might be the first time that they're learning about RCS, right? And they're trying to play catch up. I think we were called Clerk AI in Centerfield. Someone in a major marketing agency said, "Hey, you guys are like at level 11. I'm just trying to get our brands through the door." How could you help us think through 2026 and then even thinking about 2027 if you could?
Yeah, so the shift that we're seeing clearly right now is the shift from transactional messaging to conversational, as you mentioned just before, Alex. And so to really trigger that move, we are introducing entry points from Google Search and Maps. and I would say this is the most critical piece that brands should really look into this year, is how to drive conversation, how to handhold conversation from these entry points onto RCS to increase your brand's discoverability and your agent discoverability from new entry points, as we said. So this is to me the major shift that brands should be paying attention to. One of the use cases that I'm really interested in and excited is what you just described, this ability for brands to deflect some of their customer care from voice to messaging. So from a one-to-one conversation on voice onto one-to-many conversation on messaging. So you have a better CSAT. From a brand's perspective, it's cost savings, and so customer is happier, brands is happier, and so to me that's one of the critical use cases that brands should really look into this year. We have existing live agents, live experiences that we launched on search with IHG, the hotel group. Recently, we've got United Airlines as well, who have upgraded their customer care onto RCS. So, in terms of use cases, customer care makes a great fit for RCS as well. And obviously, as we're going to talk, I think later in this conversation, but I want to talk maybe a bit more about the different entry points, as I mentioned, both on organic and ads as well. So if you're an advertiser, you can also benefit from those. So that's I think the most exciting piece. These agentic experiences combining the AI and RCS together to create those really great experience. And and again, to weigh in to what you were just saying, is that the old model was really siloed into a voice into channel, right, voice and messaging separately, right. Now we see that combining those can really help create those amazing experience where because it's centralized into the same system through Clerk Chat and Centerfield, agents can really, for example, a messaging agent can really pick up the conversation from voice and vice versa. So I think you can really build these rich and interesting and really great experiences for brands combining these technologies.
Yeah, a lot for the ants to chew on. If we were to tease that, right? If I were to summarize, you were taking the channels that consumers are used to conversing over, right? Text messaging is now being upgraded in what we're calling kind of the color TV or the 4K TV moment for SMS into RCS. We're translating that into voice as well. And so voice has been traditionally a bit of a dwindling channel over the last 5-6 years because of all of the robocalls and the spam calls, but it's now getting a renaissance because of these AI agents and because of the concierge service. And what's incredible is that those channels touch hundreds of millions of consumers. But when you combine it with the surface area that Google search is what you're talking about, and then Google Ads, so combining the power of RCS click to message, which we'll get to in just a couple minutes. You're now talking about, if I could have my Dr. Evil moment here, right? You're talking about billions of consumers with a B, let alone that the hundreds of millions. But if that wasn't enough, you now really have the entire attention of the world. And that becomes really important if you're trying to reach consumers from different ecosystems, LATAM, EMEA, and even in the United States, which is, we've seen, the proof points in other messaging ecosystems. I leave the United States and it's a different messaging protocol that I'm using, right? And so the US has been a bit of a laggard, and finally we're playing catch up. And it's so exciting that it's here and that Google is investing in such a big way and going kind of across its horizontal surface as well. And with that being said, maybe if we were to take just one step back and think about this in a concrete way, because we have this live in production with Centerfield with Aniket. Aniket, can you talk us about our relationship, right, from December when we went live with a pilot and you said, hey guys, we are going to test this out. I'm a big innovator. I'm a big believer. I have high conviction, but still this stuff has to work at scale. We'll give you guys, I think it was a 45-day pilot. And then Aniket, you actually ended up stopping it after 13 days, which was much to our shock. Can you talk about what that pilot was and why you stopped it?
Yeah, sure. So basically the pilot terms that we agreed back then was like close to like 5,000 contacts with 15 different touch points for each contact for about like 30 to 45 days. So basically, like, the way I approach is I always like to test out like very quickly and not like waste too much planning time. So we just like jumped into this. We picked up small couple of use cases and jumped into it. And then soon we realized so before that, like the use case was like we do like a lot of pre-qualification within our ecosystem. So like consumers who are interested in certain goods and services, they would sign up on our sites, and then we would call them, and then we would say, if you are interested, then we'll bridge you to a human agent who can actually help you towards the entire sales process. So the first part is where we basically try to like automate through Clerk Chat and AI and RCS. So what we noticed is in like first 5 to 10 days, like we almost started seeing the double conversion rate. So the more number of transfers are getting to the humans. And since we picked up a small program, we only had like limited capacity on the call center side. So then like in like 10-15 days, like we almost double or triple to a point where like we are trying to we almost were abandoning the call, which is kind of like not a great experience for us. It's a good problem to have, but like not a good customer experience. So we put a pause there. We just quickly like brought the entire leadership together, and then instead of like just focusing on that one use case, we actually went like all in across our ecosystem, and over like next 15 to 20 days, we just rebooted everything and moved from like 5,000 contact POC to like more than 50,000 contacts in next 3 or 4 weeks. So though like we had to pause, but the pause was like very meaningful there. It allowed us to like digest the data quickly, versus like we could have spent like months just planning and not getting that insights, versus just running with the POC and getting that real-time insight was super helpful for us.
Yeah, if I were to summarize, it's been incredible to see, right, that 3 to 5 lift in messaging. I think you gave us a bit of a scare when you gave me a call and you say, "Hey, Alex, we're going to stop the pilot," and you paused for dramatic effect. I thought, and as a startup, right, in San Francisco, that's a terrifying thing to hear. 13 days into 45, yeah. So we're very grateful that was because we were sending so many leads. It was creating a choke point for your call centers. And I think is most incredible is the fact that what you mentioned around the remarketing aspect, right? So if we're dialing out and the consumer, it goes to voicemail, or they're busy, right? They're maybe at lunch or with family. It could still be a wrong time that they're receiving a call. I think we're all familiar with this. What's wonderful is that the RCS agent will follow up and do that remarketing portion. So the consumer can then continue the conversation. And what we didn't expect and what we didn't know in this Wild West world is that people would start to where they had maybe some questions or hesitations around the service, like an internet service that they were that they had gone online for and were searching for. They had questions around speed or service area in their zip code, or if they were moving, right? Things that are kind of objections or questions that if you're not in this world of speed to lead, if you're not answering quickly, or if your sales agents aren't well trained on, it creates a moment, unfortunately, of dissatisfaction and churn. Yeah. And it feels weird that SMS, right, is, again, it's an advertisement and people were texting back, but there was never an answer, at least at scale. And so now to give that white glove service to every single person that you're messaging in the hundreds of thousands and if not millions, to see the conversion from the top of funnel to the end of funnel, I think is an incredible thing. And for Alex and the Google team, now I think is a great time to introduce this next level. So this is working live in production. We can start small, right? We don't need to do the full, if for brands out there wondering like, wow, this sounds like a lot of work. We can start small. And then there's some really fun surface areas. If I were to tee you up, Alex, for Google search and Google ads that brands can actually get started with today and that we are experimenting with today. Can you talk to the site links, and then we'll tease out the ads to conversations, maybe starting with site links?
Yeah, sure. So as a general introduction, I talked about these entry points. So we are enabling entry points on search and maps. Right now, search only is available, but maps soon to be, in next quarter. So what this means is that we are bridging the gap between search queries, search results, and the RCS agent, the RCS capabilities. By doing so, we are basically addressing the most essential and also the most critical part for brands, which is establishing that initial connection with their customers. And so there's multiple formats that we are enabling, or entry points. The first one is so site links. Site links is basically you can leverage generic organic search queries branded search queries. So somebody searches for your favorite brand, so Optimum or Centerfield or Clerk Chat, you will see this click-to-message extension that shows on at the bottom of the the search results, right below the site links. So you've actually have live examples on Google that that are live today. So Optimum is one of them. I mentioned IHG before, United, Aetna. So all of these are brands that are using this feature today. And again, the key benefit is really that we are hand-holding the user from a static experience on their website to a dynamic one into the agent. And so we're bridging the gap. We're capturing the intent, the user where the intent is at its highest, bringing it to an RCS agent. So again, a site link. You just mentioned site link, Alex, but
Yes.
site link is just one of them. There's others that we can talk about as well. So
yeah, maybe if I pause here as well, I'd love to hear from Anikith as well. We had a debate, and I've taken a pretty firm stance, and my company will laugh, the audience members listening, is that we took a pretty aggressive stance. I would call it against web chat. I had this thesis a couple of years ago or a year ago saying we're full in on RCS, right? You said it was the highest intent moment. So adding this in the last couple of months, I think about 2 months ago, was a huge moment for us at Clerk Chat or Clerk AI to validate everything that we're building and why we're building it on this surface. But there's still a lot of web chat companies out there, right? Web chat is still one of the biggest access points. Anikith, you spoke to us. You asked us, "Hey, would you guys build us web chat?" Right? What is your current position right now? If I were to put you a little bit on the spot, what is your thesis here? Is it, are you going all in on this methodology? Do you still see a world where web chat can coexist, or do you see it's kind of like going the way of the dinosaurs? It will be extinct in a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you asked me like 2-3 months ago, then I would have said, yeah, we definitely need web chat. But I think now that there is an option here, we can definitely put a call to action on our site and then guide everybody through an RCS experience. It definitely changes the game. But as the technology and the ecosystem is changing, I see the e-commerce experience to be completely changing than what it is today, right? So that's where I see the value of having not a traditional web chat, but like an LLM like chat, which is similar to what you have in RCS, but on a website where you can have a conversation, you can explore the products. Then instead of it being a very traditional e-commerce website where you see the products and those kind of things. So it does exist, at least for now. I still want to test it and validate and see the results that it doesn't exist. But certainly there's an option for us to link from our site to RCS and have that as an option in the interim.
That's awesome.
I think one of the main benefits of RCS versus web chat is actually the always on, right? The persistence of RCS. So you have now an agent that lives in your pocket. Brands can re-engage with it at any point in time, similar to users. If you have a question, you can re-engage with the agent, right? And so that's the main point, right, of RCS living in your inbox versus web chat.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. I agree with you. Can't agree more than that. Because we always had to find the people who abandoned the cart and try to reach them back again. That was a headache always. With this approach, I think it certainly makes that life easier.
And I'd say one of the coolest innovations that we're doing is we're experimenting with, can web chat live on the RCS ecosystem? Can we use that protocol in a web chat function? And so again, we have that functionality coming out. Can users even scan a QR code, right? Go from mobile or from a web to a mobile web RCS experience and move away from that web chat experience. It's a debate that we have ferviously almost every single day here at Clerk AI, but appreciate both of your perspectives. And that transitioning over back to Alex at Google, the other, I'd say not the second best or second in class, but one of the biggest surfaces that we have is Google Ads, right? So having this as a sponsored advertisement based on search queries and search results. Can you talk to the experiments that are happening right now and how brands can get engaged?
Right, of course. So I mentioned organic entry points, and to your point, Alex, we are piloting paid search as well. So you now can pilot those message ads, as we call them. So you now have the ability as an advertiser, a Google advertiser on AdWords, to add this message ads button or click to message extension in your ads, and that combines the power of search, obviously, and add search to RCS, meaning that, of course, you'll show on top of search results. And now, in addition to the click to URL that you have on a standard message listing, you can add listing. You can also add this click to message button, which is really prominent below. So if you click on that, you'll be directed to the agent. And so, again, you leverage both. You combine both the power of search to the power of ads targeting with specific keywords, a specific audience that you can target, multiplying, the performance of your ads. So this is really a key pilot that we're running right now. If you're interested as an advertiser, feel free to reach out to Centerfield, Aniket and Alex at Clerk AI. They are really helping us in that running that pilot.
Yeah, I'd say there's limited spots available, given that it's so experimental. So it's one that we're, again, personally extremely excited about, and one that Centerfield, again, as Aniket, as an innovator and pioneer in the space, is jumping on. So, Aniket, anything you would like to add to this as well?
No, I mean, like we turned on the pilot like a week or so ago on the ads. So super excited. Like early results are promising from the engagement standpoint, but it's just too early to say. But just super excited to have that channel where consumers can now engage directly to the AI agent directly from the ads. I think that will be transformational.
And to add to it a little bit more, we are actually targeting verticals, as we mentioned, that are really prompt to lead gen, right? And so we're talking about retail, travel, finance, education, automotive. So, for example, automotive, book a test drive, or book a service repair. In finance, you can get pre-qualified leads for loans on mortgages and these kind of things, right? So anything that has to do with lead generation, you can now leverage this new feature. And again, we are really excited about that, as it complements the organic entry points and make it very compelling for you as an advertiser. So yeah, let's wait and see.
Yeah. I think lead gen is like one aspect, but the way we see is mostly like the customer acquisition, which is kind of like everything end to end. And we have almost like a version ready for one of our clients where you can actually place an entire order through RCS. So I think like the possibilities are like unlimited here, and it's truly a channel similar to like voice, I would say. So super excited for that piece.
Yeah, it's really cool because, again, what we do is we can power as well. Together, what we've proven is the ability to go from RCS and voice and back and ping pong between both without losing the context of the channel. So it's really this blending of these two. The true omni-channel journey is here finally in 2026. I remember 10 years ago, one of my first companies that I started was an advertising and analytics company, and this promise has always been there. And here we are 10, 11 years later, and it's actually here. So very proud moment to kind of look back and then see what's coming into the future. But if we were to take a step back, so this is, again, a lot of information for the audience members, and a lot of them, again, are stressing to us, okay, guys, this is all super cool, very innovative, getting our legal officer to sign off, getting our security officer to sign off. That's going to be a step in itself. I might just have, I need to prove it to my CTO, to the Aniket of my organization. This person's not as innovative or bullish, or might be working on 45 other different things. They've never heard of RCS, or maybe they've heard of it a little bit, but they're not ready quite yet, for good reason, to go all in. Aniket, what's the one piece of advice for the performance marketer, the lead acquisition, lead gen, your colleagues in other companies who would like to run a pilot like this? What's a practical starting point? Where can they get started today, would you recommend?
Yeah, I think like, they know their world much better than anybody. So they should like, try to figure out like what's a high value conversion like use case, at least one or two of them. And then move fast on it, right? Like if they're going to sit down and then try to like figure out like, hey, how should we plan XYZ? It's going to take a long time, because what you don't know is what you don't know. So it's better to like, move fast, try out in the real world and get some real data, and then go back to the drawing table and find like, like a long-term migration plan from, or a much more robust plan is what I would say. And then the third piece is around like, don't try to like come up with a new success metrics either. Because oftentimes like, we just go like, okay, now this is RCS, like what should be our success criteria? Don't try to come up with a new benchmarks. I would just say like stick with what you already have. In our case, like, for us, we wanted to make sure like our numbers should be same as what we have in our existing channels, right? So we don't need to like find new KPIs particularly, and trying to be realistic and come up with a base, try to achieve like what we have today. Even if we reach there or below that, I think is a good start in my personal opinion.
Do you have any? Those are great. Sorry for the introduction, but do you have any of those specific metrics that you or any other marketer could be maybe just as a starting point? Because we have had that where people are scratching their head being like, what do I measure with SMS? It's not conversational. So there is new data, but like, what is a new benchmark that I could have?
I mean, engagement, as far as the new one, the engagement is definitely the newest one. But I wouldn't like lose my sleep over coming up with a new engagement metric. I would just look at like the conversion rate, right? Very basic, like how many people are coming through RCS and how are they converting. You will see like a huge lift right there. And once you validate there, then you can go back to the engagement and try to optimize those areas, I would say.
Awesome. And Alex, the same, before we maybe transition over to the Q&A from the audience, what would you say as a piece of advice if somebody wanted to get started with RCS this week or in the next month? Where can they get started? What's, how do they begin this journey?
Yeah, sure. So I would say that a lot of the brands today still use SMS, right? And so I would advise to pick one or two highly, high value SMS journeys that they're designed already, and redesign them as an RCS, so make them reach conversational, and really compare, do A/B testing, compare how RCS performs versus SMS, and you will see that you shouldn't be disappointed. I would also treat RCS like a new marketing channel. So, allocate budget to it, because this is really a new way for you to engage. This really combines the power of digital marketing with the power of a new, I would say, telco or messaging channel, which has never happened, right? So really combining, the power of search entry points, the digital world, digital advertising world, and messaging requires a new budget. And so this is another important piece, and really measure everything. You have the ability, this is a data channel, so you have all the analytics available, not only from the Google search piece, which is obviously the entry points, but also within the agent, you can measure the the read rate, the response rate, how many messages were delivered, etc. So you can really measure this end-to-end ROI. You can really measure the ROI end-to-end, not only from the entry points into the agent. So yeah, that would be my piece of advice. And again, don't be shy. I would say act now, and see what you get from there.
Well done. Well said. With that, gentlemen, thank you so much. I'd say that unless there's something you'd like to add, I'd say that wraps up a lot of the substance of what we've been discussing today. In summary, again, how do we make people go from transactional messaging and marketing into conversational, where they become obsessed with talking to a brand? That is the mission and journey that the three of us are on all together. And it's been super exciting and very privileged to be working with these two gentlemen and many other innovators in the ecosystem. I'm going to transition to a couple questions that we're getting from the audience. And I know there's some pretty good ones already. I'd say, I don't know if Igor is there, but he's pinging me in the background as well. Igor is our CEO and founder. All right. So question number one is, what are the biggest challenges in building conversational flows on RCS? So I think, Aniket, maybe you and I can divide that one, or Alex, feel free to jump in as well. But I know, Aniket, you and the team have built quite a few with us. I'd love to hear your perspective and the challenges.
Yeah, I think like as far as on the RCS perspective, let me take a step back. I wouldn't say like challenges. It's kind of like just like reimagining and rethinking to do it different way, because like oftentimes we try to like think RCS is just as an SMS, and that's where I think like we fall short there. I would just think like RCS is just a better version of voice, I would say, and more connected version of voice, where you can do anything and everything that you would do on voice. You can also do it on RCS, but also stay connected with the customer. So which is like an added benefit there, in my personal opinion.
I'd say that's right. I'd add to that as well. Having built the flows, like we have maybe on a technical perspective, like how do you build them day to day? We have a a flow builder for those of members who are not maybe familiar with this product that we have an agentic builder. There are a lot of other platforms that have this. We can now do it through natural language as well. So we'll be doing that announcement later this week. Think of it as like Claude Code or Cursor for voice and RCS flows. But I'd say it's really, if a lot of people think, oh, why don't I just go and work with OpenAI's API or Anthropic's API or Gemini's API out of the box, which you could. It's that having a single agent with a deterministic goal that keeps the brand's, like I guess reputation or like the brand's voice succinct. It doesn't go off topic. It doesn't talk about, religion or politics or anything that you don't want your brand to be talking about, and really nudges the end consumer back to a goal. You mentioned like you're seeing people, we're going to be releasing something where you could signal the purchase intent and then actually go all the way to the purchase through RCS. So this is something where the conversational flows, it's something that we can provide from the Clerk AI perspective, and something that we're very proud to have developed with the conversational AI flows. And then we have one as well that is, why is memory important in RCS and voice? And how are you thinking about institutional memory as part of building voice in RCS? I mean, maybe that's one for me, but I don't know, gentlemen, if you have a perspective on memory, which is a new concept, I'd say, for LLMs and for these two channels.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I mean, the way we have done behind the scenes is we have like a CDP platform that is kind of like, anytime like somebody interacts within the journey, we capture anything and everything about that consumer, and then just keep augmenting a CDP layer, and then integrating that CDP layer across different channels is what is making like the magic there. And the reason why it's super important is because today, like, consumers like to interact through different channels, and they don't want to give same information again, right? So if I spoke to somebody and I gave my information, and I'm talking again to the same brand through a different channel, and if they're asking me same questions, I mean, you've lost the customer there, right? So memory is super important at that point, and I would rather greet a person on a new channel with the name versus asking him, hey, what's your name?
Exactly.
So that's my two cents, like why memory is super important in different multi-channel world.
Yeah, in customer care as well, it's really important, right? You're interacting with your favorite airline, for example, and they know that you bought this flight to this destination, and so they can really interact with you. Did you get all what you want? Do you want like an upgrade for this flight, or do you want to get access to the lounge, or premium access to whatever? So this personal, hyper-personalized conversation that are available through maintaining this history of conversation is key, right? To improve the experience.
Yeah, I'd say that's one of the benefits as well. Not to keep harping on why not web chat, but I have to get on the soapbox, is that you lose that context around the customer ID, right? As they close the web chat experience. So when they do call back to customer care, as you're saying, I mean, that doesn't work very well at all. Sorry, there was just a call going off. Benefits of live. But yeah, I'd say that is what you have from RCS, is you have the full customer experience, the full customer lifecycle, end to end. And why memory, again, is that even if you have the full customer lifecycle, but you don't have memory, I'd still say it's a poor customer experience, right? What did I do last year? What seats did I pick last year? These are all relevant pieces of data that are important for brands to track and follow. And that's something that we can help out with. I'd say the last question is, how do I get registered for RCS? What are the steps to doing that? How long before I can launch? Like if I wanted to get started this week, as Alex said, Alex Allemand, how long before I set it up and I'm live, would you say?
So say pick your partner, right? And you have a great example here. We have Alex in the room, so they can help you like handhold you into registering your agent and get it vetted. You have to go through and they will manage it, right? But you have to go through a verification process where your brand will be verified, your agent will be verified by carriers and verification authorities. So Alex will be handling this piece, and so between, I would say, signing with Clerk AI and Centerfield and designing the agent, maybe, I mean, it's up to you, Alex, but maybe 1 or 2 weeks, and then getting the agent vetted is probably another 1 to 2 weeks. So it's pretty quick, but again, the most important piece is that you're in good hands in in getting this through, I would say.
And is there a brand size? Last year it was kind of, let's start with like the Fortune 1000, Fortune 500. That was kind of like, well, the whispers of what was being said during the Wild West. Has that bar of entry shifted at all, or is it really high volume kind of performance marketing, customer care use cases? Like, what's the gating? What are the gating factors and guidelines for today? If we have like a lot of SMBs, is that program going to be open soon? What's on the roadmap, and how can we?
So I cannot really speak on behalf of carriers who are really the entities who vet these agents. But what I can say is that there's a drastic, like, it's night and day between now and last year. Last year it would take several weeks to get an agent launched. Now it's a matter of, I would say, maximum 2 to 4 weeks. So that's a big area of improvement. The process with verification authorities and aggregators and carriers has been drastically improved. So in terms of the criteria, just submit your agent, and as long as you have, you follow the guidelines provided by Centerfield and the carriers through Centerfield and Clerk Chat, you'll be good. So don't worry too much about about that. I would just think about the experience and the design more than the hurdles of launching the agent.
Got it. Wonderful. Yeah, we can help with all of that stuff, as well as Alex was saying. Our sales team is ready to go and but not only to sell you this agentic capability, but to really help navigate you as a brand through this. And they'd be happy to take any questions that anybody has as well. And I guess the last question that I'm seeing right now, and we can transition away, is for Aniket on the compliance side. So how do you balance this notion of compliance? The person says they're getting a lot of pushback from their security officer from a performance marketing aspect. What would you recommend from that perspective, or how did you get started from an RCS and voice AI perspective that is now pretty heavily regulated, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's always going to be a challenge. Like, I think the technology is not the issue at this point. It's kind of like, navigating the internal compliance and all that good stuff within the company. I think, like, if you create like a small POC with clear goals and a small team that focuses on like, those goals, and getting a buy-in from the leadership is really important. Otherwise, like, you can just like, be in the cycles of like, approval from one department to the other. And by that time it'll be 6 months, and then you're going to lose that opportunity of like, early adopter and gaining all that advantage that you would be gaining right now.
Yeah. I'd say we help as well. This is one of the benefits that we do, is if we could shamelessly plug us while we're here, is we do as an entity, we are stewards of good business, of the FCC, of robocalling, of CTIA, 10DLC, all of the state-by-state regulations. We have protocols in place. Our AI agent, when it makes a call or an RCS outbound message, is in compliance. It follows all the opt-in and opt-out policy consents. We have a web form widget as well that can capture consent. We have double opt-in consent. So all of, as you mentioned, all of that good stuff, all of the things that we as consumers, right, we hate it when other businesses abuse, or scammers will abuse and send us phishing messages. We are good stewards of all of the federal and statewide regulations. So we can help companies navigate this and bring a lot of peace of mind to the security and compliance officers. So hopefully that 6 month cycle can be compressed into a couple of weeks. And I agree that starting with a small amount of traffic as well, because we all know that there's a lot of fun, lawyers out there who look for this stuff. But on that lovely note, gentlemen, is there anything else that you would like to cover? That was the final question. It's a big one for compliance, but is there anything else that you would like to shout out? Anything else on the roadmap that you would like to call out? Maybe Alex or Aniket, or how people could reach out to you?
Well, I think we covered, the most important point. And again, what I'm really excited about is this pilot that we're running right now. So, go ahead and help us and participate in the pilot. That'd be my call out.
Awesome. Aniket, anything from your side?
No, I think like, just don't be shy. Like, just go ahead and like test it out. I think that's probably the only way to know the true power of this channel. We can sit down and try to convince everyone for months and years, but the only way to know is by doing a small pilot, and then they can get the enough real data, and then data will speak for itself.
Agreed. Well, That's what we're looking for right now, is more innovators like both of yourselves and like ourselves here. I want to thank you all for the last hour that flew by all together. It's been a nice work in progress that we've been doing over the last couple weeks, couple months together. Thank you so much for both of you being innovators and being great partners of this, and being partners in the push forward towards conversational and agentic services. So happy Monday, everybody. And we will see everybody else on the other side. If you have questions, this recording will be sent out to everybody who joined here as well. And feel free to reach out to us at sales@clerk.ai, or myself personally at alex@clerk.ai as well. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. Good luck. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Bye.